My son married in secret. I found out on Instagram, staring at a photograph of him in a dark suit, smiling beside a woman in a white dress and two parents I had never met. Underneath the picture was a caption that felt like a blade pressed under my ribs, with the family that always supported me. For a moment, I did not move. The world simply narrowed to the glow of the screen and the sound of my own breath catching in my throat. That photograph had been posted 8 hours earlier. Thousands of people had seen it before I did. All of them knew my son was a married man. All of them. Except me. My name is Evelyn Carrington. I am 67. I had woken up before dawn, as I often did now. Sleep came in pieces these days. Light and restless. I brewed tea the way I always had, letting the steam warm my hands, and sat at the kitchen table where the wood had been worn smooth by years of breakfasts. Unpaid bills. And birthday cakes I once made for a boy who used to run into my arms. I reached for my phone only because the silence felt too heavy. A neighbor's grandson had taught me how to use Instagram 2 weeks earlier. I still tapped the wrong icons sometimes, but I liked seeing pictures of people living their lives. It made my small house feel less empty. But that morning, when I opened the app, the first thing on my screen was my own son, not smiling at me, not standing beside me, smiling at a life I knew nothing about. I zoomed in without meaning to. His hair had been cut shorter. His suit looked expensive. The bride held his arm like they had been practicing for months, and behind them stood her parents. Both elegant, posed as if they had rehearsed it. The caption repeated itself in my head, with the family that always supported me. I set my tea down because my hands were shaking. Supported him. I had worked double shifts for decades, paid for braces, scraped together enough for college, bought the house he lived in with my own broken back. I had been there through fevers, heartbreaks, the night he sobbed after his father died. I had been the one who stayed. But there, in one photograph, my son had erased me, cleanly, publicly, as if I had never existed at all. I scrolled down further. More pictures. The same strangers, a ceremony lit with golden lights, a reception hall filled with people in polished shoes and champagne glasses. Every image was a celebration of a life I had not been invited to witness. I did not cry at first. I just sat there, letting the truth settle over me with a quiet, bruising heaviness. It felt like something inside me had been set down too hard and cracked. By the time the sun pushed through the blinds, my tea had cooled completely. I put the phone face down on the table and folded my hands to steady myself. The house felt smaller than usual, as if every room had shifted inward by an inch. I stayed like that for a long time, breathing through the dull ache in my chest, until the decision surfaced with a calm I did not expect. When morning fully arrived, I picked up the phone again, not to open Instagram, not to call my son. I dialed my lawyer. And just like that, the life I had allowed myself to endure began to change. Quietly, steadily, with the sound of a ringing line. The phone call to my lawyer had gone to voicemail, and I left only my name and a request to meet. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. When I hung up, the house settled around me again, the way it always did, quietly, insistently. Like it was reminding me that everything in it still belonged to me, even if my own child no longer seemed to. I walked into the living room and turned on the lamp, even though daylight had already crept in. The soft click filled the silence more than the light did. My husband used to tease me for doing that. Evie, the sun is free, the electric bill is not, he would say, nudging my shoulder. He had been gone for 8 years. But sometimes I still turned toward the couch expecting him to be there. The couch, of course, remained empty. I sat down slowly, my knees protesting, and let my hands fall into my lap. The house felt too large for one person and too small for everything I held inside. Grief, memory, disappointment. They crowded the room more than any furniture ever had. The doorbell rang. It startled me upright. No one visited unannounced anymore. I opened the door to see my neighbor, June, holding a plastic container. "I made too much soup," she said, then squinted at my face. "You look like you've been hit with bad news." I stepped aside to let her in. "I suppose I have." She set the container on the counter. "Tell me." I hesitated, but she waited without pressing. That was something I appreciated about her. She knew loss, too. Her husband had passed 3 years before mine. "My son got married." I said, "Yesterday." June smiled faintly. "That should be good news." "He did not tell me." My throat tightened. "I found out on Instagram." Her expression fell. "Evie." And the caption said he was with the family who always supported him. My voice thinned on the last words. June put a hand on my arm. "I am so sorry." I nodded, swallowing hard. "I called my lawyer this morning." That made her eyebrows lift. "Is it about the house?" The question slipped out naturally. Everyone on the street knew Nathan lived in the house I had bought decades ago. What they did not know was how little he acknowledged that fact lately. "I just need to talk to someone who understands the law," I said quietly. June squeezed my arm. "If you need anything, I am here." Truly, her kindness nearly broke me. But I kept myself steady. After she left, I heated her soup, even though I had no appetite. I ate half a bowl anyway. Because she had cared enough to make it, then I washed the dishes slowly, letting the warm water run over my hands until the sting in my chest eased. I walked through the house after that past photographs on the wall, ones where Nathan still smiled at me like I was the center of his world. I paused at a picture from the summer he turned 10. His father had lifted him onto his shoulders, both laughing so hard the photographer had shaken the camera. The image was a little blurry, but the happiness in it was clear. I brushed a finger over their faces. "You would know what to do," I whispered to my husband's memory. "You always did." But he was not here, and the decisions were mine alone. The afternoon light stretched across the floor as I moved back to the couch. I sat again, letting the quiet settle around me, not comforting, not hostile, just present. I let myself breathe through it. Everything felt uncertain, but one thing was clear. The life I had been living in silence was beginning to shift, and I was no longer willing to be erased. I sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around a mug that had gone cold an hour earlier. The silence in the house had a way of loosening memories I usually kept folded away. That morning, they came back one by one, sharper than usual, as if the betrayal from the wedding photos had cracked something open. I took a deep breath and let them come. Nathan was 6 when his father died. A car accident on a rainy stretch of Highway 26. I remember the knock on the door, the officer's hat in his hands, the way my knees gave out before he even spoke. Nathan stood behind me in his dinosaur pajamas, asking, "Where's Daddy?" I told him the truth the next morning, and he cried until he fell asleep in my lap. That was the day I promised myself he would never feel alone. I didn't realize then how hard that promise would be to keep. When the plumbing company offered me extra hours, I took them. When they wanted me to take overnight shifts, I took those too. I was 33, widowed, and terrified of not being enough. For years, my hands smelled like metal and pipe glue because I was the only woman on the repair crew, and every night, no matter how late it was, I would tiptoe into Nathan's room, kiss his forehead, and whisper, "You're safe. I'm here." I rubbed at the scar on my palm, a reminder of the winter I slipped on ice while carrying equipment down a driveway. I worked through the pain because missing a day meant missing money, and missing money meant Nathan going without something he needed. The doorbell rang softly, one short chime. I blinked, pulled myself back into the present. and went to open it. It was Mr. Harland, my old supervisor from the company. He was in the neighborhood visiting his daughter, Evie. He said gently, "You look like someone kicked the door off your world." I forced a smile. "Rough morning." "Want to talk about it?" he asked. I hesitated, but something in his voice felt steadying. "Nathan got married. I found out through Instagram." He winced. "Ouch!" And the caption said he was with the family that always supported him. I swallowed. Apparently. That's not me. He stepped inside without asking, the way someone does when they've known you long enough to see past politeness. "You know," he said, leaning against the counter. "I remember when you started working for us. You were the toughest damn person on the crew. Always took the hardest jobs because they paid a few extra dollars. I didn't have a choice." He nodded. "I know. And I remember the day you refused the office job we offered you. I couldn't take it." I said quietly. "The hours were worse, and Nathan needed me home for dinner at least a few nights a week." He gave a small, sad smile. "You built everything around that boy." I did. Every promotion I turned down, every vacation I never took, every holiday shift I worked while other families ate together, I built a life out of sacrifice and small victories. I still remember the Christmas Nathan wanted the expensive bike with the bright blue handlebars. It cost almost $300. I worked 2 extra weeks of night shifts, slept 3 hours a day, and wrapped that bike at 2 in the morning on Christmas Eve. When he rolled it into the living room, screaming with joy, I told myself it was worth every aching bone. "Evie," Mr. Harland said softly, "you gave that boy everything a parent could give, maybe too much." I whispered. He left after a few minutes, offering help if I needed anything. I watched him walk down the driveway, the weight of years settling on my shoulders. The past felt heavy, but it wasn't just pain, it was truth. I had built Nathan's life with my hands, my back, my time, my heart. And now I was realizing there might not be much left of me to give. I stood in front of the old file box for a long moment before pulling it down from the top shelf of my bedroom closet. The cardboard was worn at the corners. Nathan had decorated it with stickers when he was 8. Little dinosaurs and stars peeling at the edges. I set it on the bed and opened it. And the papers inside still smelled faintly like plywood and dust. I heard my own voice as if from years ago, tired, determined, younger than I ever gave myself credit for. "Mom, why are you working so much?" Nathan had asked one winter when he was 10. He had been standing in the doorway of our tiny rental kitchen, rubbing his hands together because the heater in that place barely worked. "To get us something better," I had said. Something better had taken 11 more years. I pulled out the first envelope. Inside were work stubs week after week of overtime. I remember each shift. I remember the day a copper pipe burst in an attic and soaked me so completely that my jeans froze stiff in the truck on the ride back. I remember the summer I fainted on a rooftop because the heat was unbearable. But the foreman needed us to finish before the storm rolled in. And I remember the night I told myself enough was enough. I needed stability. Nathan needed stability. The house came next. A bank meeting. A loan officer who kept glancing at my calloused hands as though they were stains. "You're applying a loan?" he had asked. "Yes." "Your income. It's consistent," I said. Even though consistent meant hauling tools through rain and bending metal until my wrists ached. He finally approved a small mortgage just enough for something old and forgotten on the edge of Portland. I drove straight from the bank to the property. The roof sagged. The windows rattled in the wind, and the front steps were cracked. But it had a yard, a real kitchen, and a bedroom that got morning light. For Nathan, that was enough. I fixed the house myself. Every nail, every pipe, every hour after work. Nathan stood beside me sometimes, handing me screws, asking questions. "Mom, why don't we just hire someone? Because this way, I said, we get to keep every dollar. I paid off the mortgage early, 6 years of scrimping, saving, working through back pain that made it hard to get out of bed some mornings. When the bank finally mailed me the deed, I held it like it was a newborn. The paper felt thin in my hands, but the weight of what it represented nearly crushed me with pride. I found that deed in the file box, now crisp, official, still in my name. Nathan moved into the house at 24. He brought boxes, a cheap mattress, a second-hand couch. He hugged me, told me I was the best mother in the world. I never transferred the house to him, not out of spite, out of exhaustion, out of believing that when I died, it would naturally go to him, out of thinking love was enough. My fingers tightened on the document. Love had not been enough, and the only thing Nathan seemed to value anymore was the thing still legally mine. I remember the day Nathan brought Lila home as clearly as I remember the day he took his first steps. Only this memory carried a cold edge I did not know how to interpret at the time. She wants to meet you, he had said over the phone. Just a quick dinner? Nothing fancy. His voice was rushed, almost distracted. I ignored the sting. I wanted to be happy for him. I cooked a pot roast the way he liked it, slow, tender, with rosemary sprigs the way his father used to make. When they arrived, I wiped my hands on a towel and opened the door with a smile already on my face. Lila stood on the doorstep in a cream-colored coat, heels that probably cost more than my monthly groceries, and a polite, distant expression. Her hair was perfect. Her posture was perfect. Everything about her radiated money and upbringing I had never known. Nathan stepped slightly in front of her. Mom, this is Lila. I extended my hand. It's so nice to finally. She glanced at my hand before giving it the lightest touch, as if she were afraid my calluses might rub off on her. Nice to meet you, she said, her voice smooth and careful. They stepped inside. I watched Lila's eyes skim over my small living room, the thrift store bookshelf, the patched-up upholstery on the recliner, the framed photos I had hung crookedly on purpose because Nathan once said it made our home feel comfortable. Lila's lips tightened. Nathan cleared his throat. Dinner smells great. Mom. I tried to ignore the way Lila whispered something to him as she walked past. He nodded, looking uncomfortable, but said nothing. At the table, I served them portions and sat down. So, Lila, I began. Nathan tells me you work in marketing. She lifted her glass. Brand strategy for my father's firm. Oh, I said, trying to keep my smile steady. That must be exciting. It's demanding, she replied. We travel a lot. We attend charity events, business dinners, networking. She said the last word slowly, as if it were a language I wouldn't understand. Nathan shifted in his seat. Mom's good with people. She'd fit in fine at any of those. Lila's eyebrows lifted. Of course. Her tone made it clear she did not believe it. I ate my food quietly after that, letting them talk. They spoke about expensive restaurants in the Pearl District, vacation homes in Sun River, wine tastings I could never afford. Each sentence felt like a reminder of a world Nathan was entering without me. When I brought out dessert, simple lemon bars I made from scratch, Lila pushed her plate away politely. I don't usually eat sweets, she said, but thank you. Nathan didn't touch his either. That hurt more than I expected. After dinner, when they stood to leave, Lila placed a hand on Nathan's arm. We should get going. My parents expect us. I walked them to the door. Nathan hugged me with one arm, distracted, already reaching for his keys. Thanks, Mom. I'll call you tomorrow. Lila gave me a small smile tight. Practiced. Thank you for dinner. They walked to their car, their silhouettes merging in the glow of the street lamp. I stood at the door long after they drove away, the house suddenly too quiet, the air too still. That night, sitting alone at my kitchen table with untouched lemon bars, I realized something had shifted. And I began to wonder when I first became a stranger in my son's life. I spent the entire morning baking the cake. It was the same recipe Nathan loved since he was 9, the chocolate layer cake with the thick frosting I used to swirl with a butter knife until it looked like waves. I beat the batter by hand because mixers always make it too dense. I crushed walnuts for the topping even though my wrists complained the whole time. When it cooled, I decorated it carefully, piped his name across the top, pressed a few walnut halves around the rim. I stood back and looked at it the way mothers do when they put hours into something they hope will be loved. It was not perfect, but it was ours. By 4 p.m, I boxed it up and set it gently in the passenger seat before driving across town to his house, the house I bought with decades of aching hands and missed holidays. I rehearsed what I would say. Happy birthday, sweetheart. I know things have been strange, but I love you. Let's start over. Hope is a stubborn thing. It survives long after reason gives up. When I turned onto his street, the first thing I noticed was the cars. A black sedan, a silver luxury SUV, a sports car I didn't recognize. Too many vehicles for a normal evening. Then I heard music, soft, elegant, expensive. Laughter drifted out the open windows. My grip tightened on the steering wheel. I parked, lifted the cake box, and walked up the driveway. Each step felt heavier than the last. I rang the doorbell. The music quieted just a little. After a moment, the door cracked open, and there he was. Nathan. His hair was styled like he had gone to a salon. He wore a crisp white shirt tucked into tailored dark pants. He held a glass of wine like he belonged in one of those glossy magazines people leave in waiting rooms. And when he saw me, everything in his face shifted. Not joy, not surprise, panic. "Mom," he said, voice low. I held up the cake with a smile that trembled despite my effort. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." "I made your favorite." He stared at the box like it was an inconvenience, not a gift. "Mom, I wish you had called first. I wanted it to be a surprise." Before he could answer, voices rose behind him. "Who's at the door?" I recognized Lila's voice, smooth and impatient. Nathan stepped halfway outside, blocking the view inside with his body. "It's nobody. Just my mom. Nobody." I swallowed hard. "Can I come in?" I asked gently. "Just for a moment." His eyes darted behind him again. I heard clinking glasses. Someone laughing too loudly. Lila saying something like, "Hurry up, Nathan. We're about to take the group photo." He sighed. "We're in the middle of something. Mom, a gathering. I repeated, "A work thing." He said too fast. Something in me cracked but didn't break. "Not yet. I only want to give you the cake," I whispered. He hesitated, then took the box from my hands. He didn't hold it with care. He held it like it was warm laundry he didn't want to fold. "Thanks," he muttered. And then he placed it on the concrete driveway. Just set it down beside his polished shoes, like it was a chore he would deal with later. My breath hitched. "Nathan, Mom, please, I'll call you tomorrow." Then he closed the door. Not angrily, not dramatically. Softly, soft enough that if I hadn't felt the wind on my face, I might have believed I imagined it. I stood there staring at the cake on the driveway, the frosting starting to sweat under the fading sun. One corner of the box bent from the impact. Someone inside shouted, "Happy birthday," and the whole house erupted into cheers. None of them were for me. None of them included me. My fingers curled and uncurled at my sides. I forced myself to breathe, forced myself to walk back to the car without bending to pick up the cake. I knew that if I touched it, if I tried to save it, Yadwisha, I would fall apart right there on the pavement. I opened my car door, sat in the driver's seat, and stared straight ahead until my vision cleared. I turned on the engine, and I drove home through the quiet Portland streets. The sound of celebration fading behind me, replaced only by the steady beat of my own heart, trying to understand why hope stayed alive even when I was pushed away. The fever hit on a Tuesday morning. At first, I thought it was just fatigue. I had barely slept since Nathan's birthday every time I closed my eyes. I saw the cake collapsing slightly in its box on the concrete, the door shutting between us. By noon, my head throbbed so hard I could barely stand. I checked my temperature with the old thermometer in my bathroom cabinet. 102. I lay down on the couch, pulling a blanket over me, even though I felt like my skin was on fire. Minutes blurred into hours. I drifted in and out of sleep, waking only when the chills shook me hard enough to rattle my teeth. By evening, I knew I needed help. My phone was on the coffee table. I reached for it, my hand trembling, and pressed Nathan's name. It rang once, twice, 5 times before he finally answered. "Hey, Mom, I'm in the middle of something. Can this wait?" My throat tightened. I swallowed painfully. "Nathan, I'm sick. I have a high fever. I'm alone." Did you take something for it?" His voice sounded distracted, like he was talking while scrolling on his phone. "I took aspirin, but it's getting worse." "My head, Nathan. I can barely stand." He exhaled, annoyed. "Mom, I'm at a work lunch. I can't leave. Just make yourself some tea and rest. If you still feel bad, go to urgent care." Tea for a 70-year-old woman shivering through a fever bordering on dangerous. I closed my eyes. "Could you come by later? Or just call me?" Silence stretched thin between us. Then he said, "I'll call you tonight." He didn't. The fever climbed higher as the night deepened. My sheets were soaked, but I couldn't get up to change them. Once, I tried to stand and nearly collapsed, grabbing the wall to steady myself. In the fog of my fever, I whispered my late husband's name, imagining his hand on my forehead, the way he used to soothe me when I got sick during the early years of our marriage. But the couch stayed empty. By the second day, I stopped waiting for Nathan's call. By the third, I stopped checking my phone at all. I lay on my side, shaking, every breath painful. I drank water only when I could force my body upright. I didn't eat, didn't clean, didn't speak. It was as if my body had folded in on itself, growing smaller and smaller inside this quiet house. On the morning of the 4th day, the fever finally broke. My skin cooled. The pain dulled. I stayed still for a long time, letting my breathing return to something human. When I could stand, I took a shower, letting the hot water wash away the sweat and the lonely kind of fear that comes from realizing no one is coming through your door. After dressing slowly, I sat on the edge of my bed and picked up my phone again. Nathan hadn't called. Not once. I dialed him anyway. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Hey, Mom. Sorry, I've been busy. What's going on?" I swallowed. I was sick. For 3 days, I tried calling you. "Yeah. Well, you're better now, right?" His tone was light, careless. "Yes," I said. My voice felt thin. "I'm better." "Good. Listen, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you later?" I hung up before he could finish, and then I sat very still, understanding something I had avoided for a long time. Being alone hurts, but finally seeing the truth hurts worse. I felt strong enough to stand again, but the weakness lingered after 3 days of fever. I moved slowly through the house, folding blankets, wiping counters, trying to keep my mind from circling back to Nathan. Then my phone buzzed. Instagram. My stomach tightened. I hadn't opened that app since the night I learned he was married. But the preview showed his name, and before I could stop myself, I tapped it. A wedding photo I'd never seen filled the screen, a private post. He had changed his settings, but not enough to lock me out. Nathan and Lila stood under a canopy of white roses. Glowing, perfect. His hand rested on her waist, the same way his father once held mine. But it wasn't the image that gutted me. It was the caption, the happiest day of my life. Surrounded by the family who always made me feel wanted. Wanted, I scrolled. Lila's mother. We're so grateful Nathan found a home with us. He deserves people who understand his potential, as if I never had. Her father. We knew from the beginning he belonged in our family. Belonged. Another woman commented, beautiful couple. Beautiful family. Lucky he escaped that old life. Old life. My breath shook. I gripped the phone until my fingertips ached. Then someone asked where Nathan's mother was. Lila replied, it was a small, curated event. Only people who were good for us were included. Nathan responded with a heart emoji. Not a word, just agreement. My knees weakened. I sank onto the couch, phone pressed into my palm like it could anchor me. I needed to hear him. Even if it hurt, I called. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Mom. Everything okay? I saw the pictures. A pause. What pictures? The ones you didn't tell me about? He sighed. Mom, I didn't want to overwhelm you. It was a small ceremony. I saw the comments. I said, from her parents, from her friends. They didn't mean anything. They said you found a real family. That's just how they talk, he muttered. They were trying to be nice. And Lila wrote that only people who were good for you were invited. His tone cooled. Mom, don't read into things. My voice trembled. Am I not good for you? Nathan, a long silence. Then sharply, I'm not doing this right now. That's not an answer. He sighed again. Annoyed. You stress too much. You always have. Something inside me folded in on itself. Nathan, I whispered, I loved you through everything. I know, he said. But things are different now. I'm building a new life. And I need space. Space. Final. Absolute. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. Thank you for telling me. I said softly, talk later. Mom. The line clicked. I lowered the phone to my lap. The room stayed painfully still. I had not been forgotten. I had been excluded, not overlooked. Removed. And accepting that truth hollowed me more than any fever ever could. I did not sleep after reading those comments. Real family. Good for us. Escaped that old life. They replayed until morning light crept in. By 8, my coffee was untouched. By 9, I stared at Nathan's name. I waited until 11, then finally pressed call. 4 rings. He answered. Hey, Mom, can I call you later? I'm in the middle of something. Where are you? I asked. Away. On our honeymoon. The word knocked the air from my chest. This is the first time I'm hearing your voice as a married man. A pause. Mom, I don't want to start a fight. Mani, I'm not fighting. I just want the truth. More whispering behind him. Lila. He came back sounding impatient. Make it quick. I saw the photos, I said, and the caption about family. He sighed. Mom, you got married. You invited her parents, her friends, your co-workers, and you never called me. Silence. It was complicated. He said, complicated to tell your mother you were getting married. The guest list was tight. The venue small. I counted the tables. It was not small. He groaned. Why are you doing this? Because I need to know why you left me out. You take everything personally. He snapped. I'm your mother. I found out from strangers online. Waves and laughter filled the background. His life full, mine not, Lila thought. he began. Thought what? That it would be better this way. Less awkward. For who? For everyone. You wouldn't have enjoyed it. Let me decide that. He hesitated, then said it. You wouldn't have fit in. I froze. He rushed on. You get emotional. You talk about hard times. Lila's family doesn't get that. I didn't want to spend my wedding day translating you. Translating. Like I needed to be explained away. So you erased me, I said. I protected myself. We wanted a day that felt clean. Clean? And I would have dirtied it. You're twisting my words. I'm repeating them. Lila called his name. He laughed light. Easy. Mom, he said. It's done. You being upset won't unthrow the bouquet. Just be happy for me. No remorse. Just a request for silence. Something inside me steadied cold, sharp clarity. I'm glad you found love. I said, but I won't pretend this didn't happen. You made a choice. You're making this too big. Maybe I should have believed you earlier, I said, when you told the world who your real family was. Mom, I won't keep you from your honeymoon. You didn't want me in your important day. I won't take this one from you. He tried to answer, but I ended the call. The silence afterward wasn't crushing. It was empty, like the space left when hope finally lets go. I barely slept after ending the call with Nathan. My body lay still, but my mind paced the length of the house over and over, replaying every word he said. You would not have fit in. You make things uncomfortable. I wanted a day that felt clean, as if I were a stain. By 3 a.m, I gave up on pretending sleep was possible. I pushed the blankets aside and walked slowly down the hallway, each step echoing in the dark. The safe sat in the corner of my bedroom closet. I had owned it for years, a squat metal box with a dial that stuck if you turned it too fast. Inside were documents I rarely looked at: old insurance papers, my husband's birth certificate, a stack of letters he wrote during our early years. And one more thing I had never planned to touch. The deed. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the dial. It felt like crossing a line I could never uncross, but then I heard Nathan's voice again, soft, dismissive, embarrassed of me. You would not have fit in. I turned the dial. When the latch clicked open, a tightness gripped my chest. I knelt on the floor, lifted the lid, and sifted through the folders until I found the envelope marked in my husband's handwriting. House papers. Inside was the deed to the home Nathan lived in, the one I bought with a decade of double shifts and one injured back that never fully healed. The paper felt thinner than I remembered, fragile almost, but the weight of it settled solidly in my hands. I sat on the bedroom floor, the envelope resting across my knees. My husband's voice rose in my memory, warm and steady. Evie, do not ever hand over your security without thinking twice, even to the people you love most. I had laughed back then. Nathan is our son. Why would I ever need protection from him? He kissed my forehead. Because you give everything away if someone asks kindly. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. The knock at the door startled me. A soft, familiar rhythm. I hurried to the living room. June stood outside in her robe, holding a thermos. I saw your light on, she said. Thought you might need this. I let her in. You should be asleep. So should you. She handed me the thermos. Chamomile, strong. I wrapped my hands around the warm metal. Thank you. She studied my face. Something happened. I nodded, then motioned toward the deed resting on the coffee table. Nathan thinks I would have ruined his wedding, I said quietly. He thinks I do not fit in with the life he is building. June's expression hardened. And that house in my name, I said. It always has been. She lowered herself into a chair. Evie, listen to me. You have bent until your spine nearly snapped. You have given that boy everything you had. At some point, You need to decide whether you keep letting him step on you or whether you stand. I stared at the deed. I do not want revenge. This is not revenge. She said, this is self-respect. Her words struck something deep inside me, not anger, not spite, but clarity. I picked up the deed again. It no longer looked thin. It looked like the truth I had been avoiding. Maybe, I said, my voice steadying, it is time to start protecting what is mine. What will you do? June asked. I closed the envelope with careful hands. I will call my lawyer in the morning, I said. There is only one thing he and his new family seem to value. June nodded slowly. And it is still yours. The house felt different around me then, not lonely, not empty, just awake. The morning after I opened the safe, I called Gerald Marks the moment his office opened. He had been our lawyer for years, mine and my husband's, and the only person outside my family who ever truly understood how hard our life had been. His assistant answered. Mr. Marks is available at 1 o'clock, she said. He recognized your name immediately. Recognized. That word alone steadied something inside me. I arrived early, clutching the folder with the deed inside. Gerald's office was small but warm, lined with old legal books and framed photos of community events. He looked older than I remembered, more gray in his beard. Deeper lines around his eyes, but when he stood to greet me, his expression softened with something close to concern. Evelyn, he said gently, come sit. You sounded shaken on the phone. I sank into the leather chair. I am. He waited, hands folded, the way people do when they know you are gathering the courage to say something painful. My son got married, I said. He did not tell me. I found out on Instagram. His eyebrows lifted. I am sorry. He had a ceremony, a reception, a honeymoon, and I was not invited. My voice trembled once, then steadied, and he said I would not have fit in. Gerald's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. I opened the safe last night. I continued. I found the house deed, and I realized something I have spent my life giving. Gerald, giving until nothing was left for me. He nodded slowly. And now I need to protect what little is mine. He leaned back. Tell me what you want to do. I want to secure the house. Legally, permanently. And I hesitated. And I want to revise my will. He didn't look surprised. You want a trust structure? Yes. Something my son cannot manipulate. Something his new family cannot touch. Gerald reached for a notepad. All right. We will create a living trust with you as the sole trustee. The property will be placed inside. Your beneficiaries will receive it under strict conditions. Conditions, I asked softly. He met my eyes. Respect, contact, involvement. Whatever you choose. This is your life, Evelyn. Your legacy. My throat tightened. I never wanted restrictions between me and my child. I know. He said, his voice softened. Your husband said the same thing when we drafted your early paperwork. But he also made me promise to protect you if Nathan ever forgot where he came from. I pressed a hand to my chest. He said that Gerald nodded. He loved you fiercely. He worried that you loved too generously. Tears stung my eyes. He was right. Gerald handed me a tissue. Tell me exactly what you want this trust to say. I inhaled deeply. I want Nathan to receive the house only if he treats me with respect. If he maintains a relationship with me. If he stops letting other people decide who I am to him. And if he does none of that, Gerald asked. Then the house goes to charity, I said quietly. Somewhere it can help people who actually need it. He wrote everything down carefully, without judgment. When he finished, he looked at me with something like admiration. You are making a hard choice, he said. One most parents cannot even imagine. I am not punishing him, I whispered. I am protecting myself. He nodded. And you are allowed to. We spent the next hour signing documents. drafting language, arranging meetings. With each signature, I felt something untangle inside me. Fear, guilt, the weight of a lifetime spent bending so others could stand taller. When I rose to leave, Gerald stood with me. "If your husband could see you now," he said softly, "he would be proud." I held the folder against my chest. "I do not want pride. I want peace." He opened the door for me. "Then keep choosing it." As I stepped outside into the cool Portland air, the truth settled around me like a shield. I had finally done something for myself. The next morning, I returned to Gerald's office with a steadiness I hadn't felt in weeks, maybe months. My hands still shook, but not from fear, more from the weight of what I was about to finalize. Gerald greeted me with a nod. "Everything is prepared," he said. "All we need is your signature." He laid out the documents on the polished wooden table, the trust agreement, the will revision, the clause detailing exactly what Nathan stood to gain and what he could lose. I sat down slowly. "Let's begin." He slid the first document toward me. "This places the house securely in the trust under your name as sole trustee." I uncapped the pen. My fingers hovered above the line. This house was supposed to be his future. Gerald's voice was gentle. "Your future matters too." I signed. The next page outlined the conditions Nathan would have to meet. Respect, consistent contact, no financial manipulation, no pressure from his new family. I traced the printed letters with my eyes, absorbing every consequence. "Is it too harsh?" I asked quietly. "I think it is measured," he replied. "You are not punishing him. You are asking him to behave like a son." I nodded once and signed again. The final document reshaped my will entirely. If Nathan failed the conditions, the trust would dissolve into a community housing charity one my husband once admired. I signed the last page, the final stroke landing heavier than the rest. Gerald gathered the papers. "It is done." A strange silence followed, heavy but clean, like exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Then he pulled out one more document. "This is the meeting notice. Nathan and Lila will receive it by certified mail. It requires them to appear here within 7 days. 7 days." My pulse quickened. "They will be angry." "Probably," Gerald said, "but anger is not the same as authority." I let out a slow breath. "Send it." He sealed the envelope, pressed it flat, and handed it to his assistant to deliver. The quiet thunk of the outgoing mail bin felt like the closing of a door I had been standing in for years. When I stepped out into the hallway, June called me on the phone. "Well," she asked. "It's done," I said, "all of it." "Are you all right?" I leaned against the wall. "I do not know yet, but I am something. Stronger than yesterday." "Yes," I whispered. "Stronger than yesterday." We hung up, and I stood outside Gerald's office a moment longer. The cool air brushing my face, the reality settling in layer by layer. My name was on every line. My future was in my own hands, and my son would soon learn that the woman he dismissed still had power he never imagined. I arrived at Gerald's office 10 minutes early. My folder sat on my lap, the deed inside it no heavier than it had ever been, yet it felt like the only solid thing I carried. Gerald stepped out from his office. "They confirmed." He said, "They'll be here any minute." "Good," I replied, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. We sat in silence until the door swung open, and the room filled with the sound of expensive shoes and louder entitlement. Nathan walked in first, jaw tight, expression already defensive. Behind him came Lila, perfectly styled, lips pressed in a polite smile that never reached her eyes, and trailing them were her parents. Her mother looked at the office furniture as if one wrong movement might stain her. Her father adjusted his cufflinks the way people do when they feel too important for a place. Nathan didn't sit. "Mom, what is this?" What emergency is so important? We all had to drop everything. Lila crossed her arms. We were told this meeting had to do with property. That is what your assistant said. Right. She looked at Gerald as if she expected him to bow. Gerald did not. Yes, Gerald said calmly. Your mother requested this meeting. Her mother let out a slow exhale. Evelyn, surely this could have been an email. I folded my hands. No, it could not. Nathan looked at the folder in front of me. Are you transferring the house? Is that what this is? His certainty, his assumption, made the room tilt for a second. No, I said. He blinked. What? Gerald slid a set of papers onto the table. Your mother has created a living trust. All assets, including the property you currently reside in, are inside that trust. Lila frowned. Meaning, Gerald said, the house is legally and permanently hers. Not yours, not jointly, not in the future unless certain conditions are met. Her father's posture stiffened. Conditions. I watched each of their faces, Nathan confused, Lila annoyed, her parents offended by the idea of boundaries. Nathan took a step forward. Mom, you said this house would be mine someday. Someday. I said softly. Not now. And not without respect. That is ridiculous. Lila's mother snapped. You are punishing him. No, I said. I am setting terms for the first time in my life. Nathan looked between us all, eyes filled with a panic I hadn't seen in years. Mom, you can't do this. I already have. The room went still. Lila's father finally spoke. This doesn't make sense. Nathan is starting a family. He needs stability. And I have lived without stability for decades. I said, now it is my turn. Nathan stepped back as if I had struck him. For the first time, he didn't look like a confident adult. He looked like someone realizing the ground beneath him was no longer guaranteed. Nathan stared at the documents on the table like they were written in another language. His voice dropped to a whisper. This cannot be real. It is very real, Gerald said, sliding the trust binder toward him. Your mother has executed these documents. They are legally binding. Lila leaned forward, eyes narrowing. So you're telling us the house is not ours now, and will not be automatically ours later? Gerald folded his hands. Correct. The property remains in Evelyn's name under a living trust. Transfer of ownership is conditional. Conditional on what Lila's mother demanded. Her voice sharp. I lifted my chin. On respect. On responsibility. On maintaining a real relationship with me. Not a convenient one. Her father scoffed. This is absurd. He is your son, and I am his mother. I replied quietly. Not a doormat. Not a background extra in his new life. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. Mom, you cannot put rules on love. I said, I am putting rules on the house, on the future, on my own worth. Gerald opened another folder. There is more? Lila's mother rolled her eyes. Of course there is. The revised will, Gerald said, adjusting his glasses. If Nathan fulfills the conditions, he inherits the property and a modest financial sum upon Evelyn's passing. And if he does not? Lila asked, though the edge in her tone suggested she already sensed the answer. Then the house and all other assets transition to a charitable housing organization. Gerald said, none of it will pass to Nathan, you, or your family. Silence dropped like a weight onto the room. Lila's father's face reddened. You cannot exclude the spouse's family like this. Gerald didn't flinch. I absolutely can. And so can she. Her estate is hers alone. You are not beneficiaries. You never were. Lila's mouth tightened. Nathan deserves more than this. Deserve, I repeated softly. He left me out of his wedding. He left me sick for 3 days. He left me out of his entire life. What exactly has he done to deserve anything? Nathan's head snapped up. Mom, that is not fair. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The polished shirt, the careful haircut, the desperate flicker in his eyes now that something he wanted was slipping away. Fair, I said. Went out the door the day you told me I would not have fit in. His face crumpled for a moment, then hardened. I was trying to protect my wedding by erasing me, I replied. Lila's mother stepped in, voice dripping with disdain. You are overreacting. This is petty, I raised a hand. Do not speak to me like that. This is my life, my home, my legacy. Lila muttered, unbelievable. I turned to her. No. What is unbelievable is that you expected me to hand over everything I worked for without a single sign of gratitude. Her father leaned forward. You are jeopardizing their future. And they, I said, jeopardized mine? Gerald cleared his throat. There is one final clause. Nathan looked up warily. What now, if anyone? Gerald said. Attempts to pressure Evelyn into reversing her decision, the trust will immediately dissolve into the charity with no opportunity for reinstatement. Lila blinked. Meaning. Gerald answered. Any attempt to manipulate her guarantees you get nothing. The in-laws fell silent. Nathan sank into the chair as if the weight of every decision he'd made in the past year finally caught up to him. His voice came out small. Mom, is all of this really necessary? I gathered the papers in front of me. Yes. Nathan, it is. He swallowed hard. So what happens now? You show me, I said. Who you plan to be? Shock thickened the air. Disbelief. Outrage. Fear swirling around the four of them like smoke with no open window. For the first time in years, I felt steady. For a long moment after Gerald finished speaking, no one moved. The papers lay between us like a boundary. None of them had expected a line they had assumed they would never have to confront. Nathan finally broke first. His voice cracked. Mom, please, can we talk alone? Lila straightened. Nathan, we should handle this together. He shook his head, the first real defiance I had seen from him toward her. Not this. Her parents exchanged offended glances. But Nathan didn't look at them. He didn't look at anyone but me. I nodded once. Gerald, may we have the room? He stepped out quietly, closing the door behind him. The click echoed. For the first time in years, my son and I sat without an audience. Nathan lowered himself into the chair across from me, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. Mom, he whispered. I messed up. I didn't answer. I let him speak. I didn't mean for things to get this far. I didn't think. You did think, I said softly. Just not about me. He flinched as if the words hit something tender. I thought you'd embarrass me at the wedding. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I would have clapped for you. I would have hugged you. I would have brought exactly what I have always brought. Love. He leaned back, eyes shining. I know that now. I folded my hands. What changed? He swallowed hard. Seeing those papers, hearing what you said, realizing how much you held back. I always thought my life was harder than yours. Turns out, I have no idea what you went through. I stared at him. Not with anger now, but with an ache I had carried for decades. When you were sick at 6 years old, I said softly, I held you for 2 nights straight. When your father died, I wouldn't sleep until you did. When the bills piled up, I gave up everything I wanted so you could have what you needed. I paused. And when you got married, you could not give me a phone call. Tears slid down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them. I was stupid. He whispered, and selfish, and scared of what other people might think. I let Lila and her family make me feel like I had to choose between you and them, and I chose wrong. Silence thickened the room. He dropped to a knee beside my chair. Mom, I am sorry. I am so sorry. Please, don't give up on me, and I will do whatever you ask. Anything. I looked down at him, my grown son. trembling, desperate, finally seeing the wreckage he had created. "You broke something," I said quietly. "I can fix it." He pleaded. "Let me try. Let me earn it back." A crack opened in my chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something gentler. A possibility. A breath. "You can try," I said. Nathan let out a sound that was half sob, half relief. He rested his forehead against my knee like he used to when he was a boy with scraped elbows. "But understand this," I added. "I am not bending anymore. If you want to be in my life, you walk toward me, not away." He nodded against my leg. "I will. I promise." I placed a hand on his shoulder, light, cautious, unsure of how much weight either of us could bear right now. It was the first moment in a long time he truly saw me. Nathan didn't stand right away. He stayed kneeling beside my chair, breathing unevenly, one hand still gripping the edge of my sleeve as if letting go might make everything collapse again. "Mom," he said quietly, "I want to fix this. I mean it." I pulled my sleeve gently from his hand and motioned for him to sit in the chair across from me. "Then sit. We are going to talk like adults, not like a child who wants forgiveness without responsibility." He swallowed hard and obeyed. Leela and her parents were outside the door, pacing. Their shadows moved under the frosted glass like restless shapes. The silence between Nathan and me held more weight than their impatience ever could. "Nathan," I said, "nothing changes unless you do. I am willing to let you try, but you will not move through my life the way you have been. Not anymore." He nodded quickly. "Tell me what I need to do. You and Lila will move out of the house within 30 days. His face fell. "Mom, no," I said firmly. "That house was never a reward for you to collect. It was my safety net, my work, my sacrifice. You live there when you honor me, not when you hide me." He sat back, defeated. "We do not have the money to get a place that quickly." "You do," I replied. "You just do not have a place as comfortable as what I handed you. You will manage." I did. At 24, with far less than you have now. He rubbed his forehead, but he didn't argue again. "Second," I continued, "you will not speak to me only when it is convenient. If you want a relationship with me, it must be consistent. Phone calls, visits, not out of guilt, out of respect." He nodded. "I can do that." "Third," I said, "your wife will not speak about me with disrespect again, and neither will you." He winced. "I know. I let things slide. I shouldn't have. You let people decide who I was to you. You let them decide I didn't belong." He looked down at his hands. "You're right." I let out a slow breath. And finally, "Nathan, therapy. For you, for the both of us if needed. We cannot rebuild anything if we do not understand where the cracks came from." He looked up, then really looked. Not through me, not past me, but at me, if that's what it takes. He whispered, "I'll go. I'll do every session. I swear." The door suddenly opened. Lila stepped inside without waiting to be invited. "Nathan," she said, strained. "Your parents are worried." "Are we done? Can we leave?" Nathan shook his head. "Not yet." She blinked, surprised. "What else is left?" "Your mother has made everything perfectly clear." I turned to her. "Not everything." Her eyebrows lifted. "You wanted me gone." I said, "Excluded. Replaced. Now you know the cost of that choice." Lila stiffened. "This isn't fair. You're punishing us." "No," I said calmly. "I am protecting myself. You do not have to like me, but you will not erase me again." Nathan exhaled shakily and reached for my hand. "Mom, I want to make this right." I let him hold it for a moment. A small moment. Not enough to heal decades, but enough to start something new. Then I stood. "You have 30 days. I expect honesty, effort, respect. After that, we will see what trust looks like." He nodded, eyes shining with fear and hope tangled together. Lila stepped back, silent now, the weight of the consequences settling onto her shoulders. I walked past them toward the door, feeling my spine straighten with each step. The hallway outside smelled faintly of old books and lemon polish steady, familiar, grounding. Nathan followed me into the hall. "Mom, thank you for giving me a chance." I turned to him. "A chance is not forgiveness. Nathan, it is the beginning of the work." He nodded, understanding. I left the office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control, clarity, and the faintest possibility of something better than hope, self-respect. 3 months passed before I realized I no longer checked my phone every morning with dread. Life had softened, not magically, not fully, but enough for me to breathe without bracing for a blow. Nathan and Lila moved out of the house 6 weeks after the meeting. They found a small apartment on the east side of Portland. Not the luxury they were used to, but comfortable enough. He called me after they moved in. "We did it," he said. "We're starting fresh." I answered simply, "Good. That's a start." We spoke once a week after that. Short calls at first. Careful, sometimes awkward. But each time, he sounded more like the boy I remembered, the one who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and say they were real flowers, not store ones. One Saturday afternoon, he showed up at my door with 2 cardboard boxes. "I kept these for years," he said. "They belong here." Inside were the drawings he made in grade school, the baseball glove his father bought him, the little ceramic bird he painted for me when he was 9. I ran my fingers along its chipped wing, feeling something unlock quietly inside my chest. We talked for nearly an hour. Not about the past we weren't ready, but about small things. Work, weather, the soup I made that week, his attempts at cooking, which sounded like minor disasters. Before he left, he hesitated on the porch. "Mom, thank you for giving me space to learn." I nodded. "And thank you for using it." He hugged me not long, not tight, but honest. After he left, I sat in my living room with the ceramic bird in my hands. For the first time in years, the house felt warm. Not because he was there, but because I was. I joined a volunteer group at a community center 2 weeks later. Seniors helping seniors rides to appointments, grocery trips, someone to sit with when the silence got too loud. I liked being useful in a way that didn't drain me. June came over often. We drank strong chamomile tea, and she teased me gently whenever I smiled at a text from Nathan. "You're getting your life back," she said. "No," I answered. "I'm building a new one." On a quiet afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table, the same place where I once cried over an Instagram post, and opened my notebook. I wrote one sentence: "My life belongs to me now." And for the first time, it felt true. Like this story so far? Leave a comment and subscribe for more stories of resilience, family, and finding your voice. If healing starts with one small step, what step would you take?